How's it going, guys? I am Connor from Running Warehouse, and today I'm here with the RW Trail Test team. And in front of me, we've got 4 of the most popular trail running shoes currently on the market. We put these shoes through the ringer, tested them out on every single surface. Today, we're gonna give the full deep dive, breakdown, really full comparison of these shoes to see how they performed. Starting it off, we're gonna go into the rocky, technical terrain. And Eric, I think you were the one of our group that performed the best.
So I had the Peregrine 13, and I've been lucky enough to have most of the previous 12 versions. This one has a couple more millimeters stack height underneath it. It's a little bit lighter than the Peregrine 12. I was very excited to get on my feet and see what it could do, because I've always thought of it as a fast, nimble, quick shoe. It lived up to its expectations. When we were looking at the slick rocks, it gripped really well. I felt like it was light, flexible, really kind of hugged the terrain. The grip underneath was really solid. I was very happy with how it performed on all the downhills, all the slick spots. Very happy with the cushion underfoot. I think the couple extra millimeters they put from the last version really helped give that impact protection that you needed. So overall, yeah, I was really happy with how it performed on the really rough downhill.
And you talk about the little extra stack you added, but when you look at some of our shoes, we definitely had even more stack. Do you feel like you still had enough protection from some of those sharp rocks?
Yeah, it has a little rock film in there that protects the foot, and with just the couple extra millimeters of cushion, it really provided any impact protection that I needed. I didn't feel any rocks, didn't have any problems with it. The Peregrine's a shoe that traditionally I've done some long races in, upwards of 50 miles, and I've never had a problem with the protection underfoot. This one with the 2 extra millimeters from last year really lived up to the Peregrine name.
And on the other end of the spectrum, when we talk about stack height and just pure cushioning, John, you tried out the Nike Zegama. How did it fare?
Yeah, so in terms of stack, I mean, the protection on the Zegama was great. We went through some pretty rocky terrain out there, but I didn't have to be cautious of where I was stepping or even have to really think about it. As soon as I would take a jagged edge and felt the protection, I knew that I could go anywhere. However, in terms of traction, I would say it's the opposite end of the spectrum from what Eric was talking about. I just didn't really feel a lot of confidence going over some of the slick rock after some mini slips that I had. For my purposes though, I'm not really trying to be the fastest on the trails. I'm just trying to get my long miles in. So I would say the Zegama fared pretty well. It's probably just not the trail that somebody who is going through races and trying to be the first is gonna wanna use that shoe.
Yeah, and I think myself testing out the Speedgoat 5, I think I had a good balance between both of your shoes because I had that extra stack. As I was going down, I was just flying and I was almost like a monster truck on the trail. I was just bouncing off the rocks, didn't really have to worry about any jagged stone bruising. And I think the one thing that really helped the Speedgoat 5 was the traction, that Vibram Mega Grip. The lugs just really, really grip the rocks. Even on some of those slick surfaces, just was going over it, no problems. Overall, I feel like the Speedgoat 5, for the amount of cushioning underfoot, is gonna be one of the best in the game.
And for how much stack it has, it's still a pretty nimble shoe. Yeah, and that's where I think you look at the Zegama, maybe not as flexible, maybe not as nimble, good cushion, but you're getting a little bit more of that nimbleness here.
Well, we can't even really tell what Liz was running in, but what were you going with out there?
So this is the Salomon Ultra Glide. Definitely difficult to see since it's so caked in mud now, but I would say this probably has the least amount of protection out of all of these shoes, but I still feel like it has a really nice amount for that kind of trail. You're not gonna feel the sharpness of rocks, but you're gonna still feel really connected to the ground, really nimble. Maybe not the best shoe for like really long miles because that impact protection maybe isn't quite there, but for shorter daily trail runs, you know, more technical terrain where you're going a little bit faster, I thought it did really, really well. I think the only place it maybe fell a little short on this one was on those slick rocks. It just didn't have quite the grip I wanted, but those rocks were pretty slick, so I think only the Peregrine really did super well there, and I guess the Speedgoat did as well.
Yeah, you know, the Speedgoat really did do well on this test, but where I also felt it shined was on the next test, and that was in that uphill climbing ability on really a variety of terrain. I feel like the Speedgoat is always known as a versatile shoe. It can handle pretty much anything you threw in its way. When we look at the Speedgoat 5 in comparison to maybe the last couple versions, I feel like it is a little bit faster. It took some of those elements of the Evo Speedgoat. It has that little bit more pop. Of course, it has that grip as you're going up the sections that you feel confident. You're just plowing up, no issues. And then, of course, that upper. It's not the most race-specific upper. It's not the sleekest, but it had that lockdown I needed. Of course, there are faster shoes out there, shoes like the Tecton, the Zenal, but for the amount of cushioning, for the amount of shoe you have here, you really can't go wrong with the Speedgoat.
Well, in the Peregrine, everything that made it a great shoe on the rocky downhills and the slick surfaces made it also a great uphill shoe. Really good traction on the gravel. It's a lighter shoe than it was for the Peregrine 12, so you're not having a heavy shoe. It's still nimble, so you could really dig in. The Peregrine is really a performance shoe. It's going to excel on the uphills as well. So I was very happy with how it performed in this test, along with the downhill test.
And what would you say is maybe the only limiting factor of the uphill climb?
The user. Yeah, I mean, with this shoe, it's going to do the work if the person inside of it is ready to go for it. This is the kind of shoe I wish I had 20, 25 years ago when I started trail running. If I had a shoe like this, you're talking about a better performance. These days, I may be not traveling up the hill quite as fast as some of you younger guys, but it's still a really good shoe. Don't let the user bring it down.
Well, I think the user was also holding back the shoe in my case for that challenge with the Ultra Glide. But I do think for this shoe, that cushioning just doesn't quite have the same responsiveness either. You know, it's lightweight, it's nimble, it has a really smooth ride, and it made it comfortable for that uphill challenge, but I really didn't feel like that shoe was giving me anything back on that faster paced challenge that we had.
Yeah, so in terms of cushioning, I think the Zoom X on the Zegama was really resilient. I was able to feel not just the protection on the moderate terrain we were on, but that energy return. I found I was able to climb a lot faster than I was expecting given the weight on the shoe. You can feel it a little bit. However, I think the Zoom X kind of offsets that weight and really propelled me forward. I was really enjoying the climb up, and I was even close to catching Connor. I was really trying to get him at the end, but the Speedgoat just peeled away at the last second.
Yeah, you came close to taking me down, but I wasn't going to let you leave with the win. But I know you've been training in quite a few marathon shoes, super shoes, and you know your super foams. How did the Zoom X fare in the trail? Were you able to get the same experience you do in some of the road shoes, or was it a little different?
Yeah, so it was different in a sense. I mean, you're not talking about the carbon plate that's going to help stabilize that foam and propel you forward. And I was a little unsure how it was going to do on the terrain, since we're talking like a little bit more softer and uneven terrain. But I would say I really felt that response when you're climbing and you're increasing speed. Even though we were going uphill pretty steep, I really felt that Zoom X pushing me forward and wanting to go fast.
All right. We talked about those steep, technical, and rocky downhills. We talked about grinding up that varied terrain on the uphill. The last component we got to go into is that rough, muddy, slippery section. We're going to go into pure traction, and I think all the shoes fared pretty well. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. Liz, you want to start this off?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Ultra Glide really surprised me because it doesn't have very deep lugs, but I felt really secure on even some of those really slippery sections. And there were a few things that really helped that shoe stand out to me during that section. I would say one was the upper. The upper was really breathable, and so even though it was fully submerged in the mud and the water at some points, I felt like it drained really quickly, and I never felt like I was sloshing around inside of my shoe. It felt really secure. I didn't feel like I was slipping around inside of the shoe either. And then I think this is also a great place where the speed laces are a nice benefit, because when I went to go tighten them after the challenge, it was really easy. They stayed secure, and I didn't have some muddy caked laces to have to deal with.
Yeah, this was like the probably most fun part of the challenge, because we went through some mud that I think trail runners would probably avoid, but we did that for the purpose of this test. And it was really great to see how the Zegamas actually performed really well. I was a little uneasy based on how much I slipped on the Rocky Challenge. But with the mud, I would say I got more traction with the Zegamas, and I wasn't slipping anymore. I was still, we would go through some tight turns and I might lose my footing a little bit, but I never went down. The shoes stayed in good shape. And like Liz, my experience with the upper was really great. When I got submerged and got wet, it only took about 10 or 15 minutes to kind of dry up, and I was able to continue on. So I was pleasantly surprised with how the Zegamas performed in that mud.
So I was also a little unsure how I was going to fare in the mud, not necessarily because of the shoe, but my own mud running capabilities. But once I just kind of dialed in on the mud and ran through, I had no issues. That Vibram Mega Grip just locked in. The Vibram is really a gold standard in the trail running world. People come back to it year after year, and I think the Speedgoat 5 nailed it from a rubber compound standpoint. The shoe is a lot of shoe, but I don't think that really was an issue in the mud. I got by each of you pretty easily, so I think it showed how nimble the shoe was. And I was probably the only person who didn't go down even a little bit. I can't say the same for you, Eric.
Well, Connor, at some point you're going to take a knee or two like I did, but it wasn't the shoe's fault. You picked a course that just had some really deep mud, and when your shoe gets sucked into it and you're not going to go anywhere, it happens. But besides me going down and taking a knee, the shoe performed great. It had really good grip. There's a lot of sticky mud out there, no slippage. Some of the lightweight of characteristics of the shoe helped in the mud too. Didn't feel like it was getting weighed down. The nimbleness of the shoe helped perform in the mud as well. All around, it was a really good experience out there. I didn't feel like I was slipping and sliding. I just got sucked in a little bit. So really good shoe for the mud as well.
Well, I don't know, Eric, if it was really you getting sucked in or Connor just pushing you down, because I definitely caught an elbow when he's talking about plowing through the mud. He was plowing through people too. But I was able to keep my footing because the Zegamas really had that stickiness, where it mattered. And one thing that I really thought stood out was when we were going downhill through some of those segments. And I was doing a lot of starting and stopping, unsure of what the turns were going to look like. And I didn't have any issues at all. And the more I was able to go down, the more confident I felt. And the shoe really just, I think, outperformed all of our expectations.
I hear what you're saying about Connor and the trails. When I went down, I was expecting to see a footprint on my back. Thankfully, you avoided that. Thank you.
Look, I'm a competitive runner, and when I see that opening, I take it. But I think all four of these shoes actually performed a lot better than we were expecting on the mud. Now it's time to give the breakdown and really say what each shoe is going to be best for. I'll start it off with the HOKA Speedgoat 5. I really feel like with how consistent this shoe was in every single test, I'm going to say it is the most versatile, highly cushioned trail running shoe. Whether you're looking to go long miles on the trail for maybe a Sunday long run, or you're just going for ultra marathon racing, it has that fast, nimble feel with plenty of cushioning underfoot.
Yeah, as a road runner, what I like in shoes is something that's going to be comfortable for long, easy miles. And the Zegama really handled that well. And I imagine this would be great for somebody who's just looking for something to cruise in, easy miles, recovery miles. The Zoom X cushioning just feels so great underfoot. I would avoid super wet and rocky terrain, but I would say for the majority of your runs, the Zegama is going to feel really great.
Yeah, I think the Salomon Ultra Glide is also a great shoe for a lot of daily running. Maybe it doesn't have the same cushioning. I don't think I would want to take it for really long runs unless you really want to have that more connected to the ground feel. But for faster, more nimble, technical terrain, it's really fun, but then it can also just have that comfort for daily miles. So if you're just on smooth shingle track or more rocky terrain, it really has what you need. And it's all about comfort. I think the cushioning is just the right amount, and then the upper is all about comfort as well.
And the Peregrine 13, it's going to be a performance shoe. You want to go fast, you want to go long, you want to race, you can look this up. In all the versions that I've tried on, this one is really fitting the foot well. It feels great. I'm pretty excited to get this cleaned up and put some more miles on it. It's had a really good initial feel, and I think it's going to be a new favorite of mine. The Peregrine family has been a long-term stay in my arsenal. This one's going to be no exception.
Yeah, so I think all of us really enjoyed our shoes, and I'm sure we're going to be putting a few more miles in them in the coming months, but that's going to wrap up our full breakdown of our trail test series. If you're looking to see our full video where we actually use these shoes on every terrain you can think of, be sure to watch our trail test video. And special thanks to There Does Not Exist Brewery for hosting us here to talk running shoes.